Are you with us?
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm going 95 down the road to Tuscaloosa.
No, Pollack!
Slow down.
All right, guys, same deal here. If you have any questions for David, go ahead and use that raise your hand feature. We'll roll through these. Ryan Hennessy, you can go ahead and go first.
Hey, David, thanks for your time, man. Can you hear me?
I got you, brother.
I asked Reese the question. Your coworker, Desmond Howard, had a tweet that kind of went big today saying he thinks Saban will be there. More of a different question for you. What do you think would be the reaction if you see him walking, leading out that team? And do you think there's any chance? What's your take on that?
Assuming all the tests come back or positive, right, and he still has COVID?
There's rumors that I don't know what's going on with the tests, that they really haven't been transparent with the media about it yet. So I don't know what Desmond tweeted. Well, he thinks he's going to coach. So I just want to know what you think.
Well, if he has corona, he has no business being there. And listen, we can't all of a sudden take the rules and change them from what we've been doing. Mike Norvell had the same thing at Florida State, and he had to sit at home. So I don't think you change the rules because it's Nick Saban, because it's a big game. I think you have to follow the rules. So if he's positive with corona, because there's a thing called false negatives, and he could have, if he passes 3 tests and he doesn't have corona and it was a false negative, it's a different story. But if he tests for corona, I think he has to do what all the other coaches in college football have done thus far and sit at home and not be a part of it.
All right, we'll go to Jeff Spiegel next.
Anna, we're not supposed to be seeing David, are we?
No, I'm sorry.
Cool. Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. David, asked Reese this a little while ago. If Nick can't coach the game, how detrimental is that to Alabama?
If it was another coach in college football, and I could probably name 100 out of the other 130 teams, that I don't think it would be as big of a deal. But this is a guy that is a control freak, that everything runs through Nick, man. And talking to Alabama coaches, I've been blown away about how much detail actually goes through him, from coin toss to defending certain directions to hash marks to plays to 2-point conversions to overtime to 4th down decisions to what he's seeing to what they're adjusting to and seeing, and the constant communication on special teams with him and other coaches. So I think it's a big deal. You don't take away, one of the most experienced coaches and one of the best coaches in the history of college football and tell me that it doesn't affect you. He has a set of eyes that sees through a lens that none of us can even come close to comprehending, including coaches on his staff. So, and again, what does that mean for the staff? Yeah, I did get up this morning with Mark Sanchez, and listen, Sarkisian will be fine. He'll call the offense. It'll be same business as usual. Okay, what about when it's 4th and 1? Sarkisian needs to be able to make that decision, right? That's a different animal. There's things on your plate now that weren't on your plate because you had a guy over your shoulder that was making all the decisions and making sure all the boxes were checked. Everybody else gets more stretched. Their job becomes harder. So, yeah, you can't tell me it doesn't have an impact on the game if you lose the experience of the GOAT and having a guy like that that's been through so many tests and trials and fires and tribulations and ups and downs and highs and lows. And by the way, I didn't even mention, the energy he gives his players and coaches by cursing them out and staying on them the whole time on the sidelines. When you got, your father figure looking at you like, I can't disappoint him. I can't let him down. And when I need some juice, he gives me some juice.
All right, we'll go to Tyler Martin next. Tyler?
Yeah, hey, David. I was just curious from your perspective, these Georgia defensive backs, how physical they are. How do you think they match up with Alabama's wide receivers? Waddle, Smitty, all those guys. And how, what are you trying to see Georgia do defensively to stop those guys?
Well, I think Georgia, Georgia has a bunch of corners and a bunch of experience that they have out there. I don't worry about the outside as much as I worry about the inside. I think this game is decided on the inside parts, and that meaning the nickel backs, the slot wide receivers versus the DBs of Georgia inside. And Waddle is that guy a lot of times who's obviously got a ton of juice and can outrun just about anybody. Going against Webb, going against Stevenson, that's the matchup to me that decides the game. If you can hold up in there, I think you can run business as usual. I don't think they're going to hold up in there. I think that's a spot where if I'm watching tape and I'm going to go after Georgia's defense, the defensive line is deep, it's physical, it's super good, man. It's the best in the country, one of the best in the country. But if I'm going to go pick spots to run things and stack routes and run bunches and stuff like that, I'm gonna pick the middle of the field and isolate those guys. And I think that's where the game, especially when Alabama has the ball and Georgia's on defense, that the game will be decided whether Alabama can continue to have their success they've had or Georgia has something to say about it.
All right, we'll go to Tony Sakalis next. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong, Tony, but go ahead.
Hey, David, from what you've seen of Alabama, what's been the problem on defense, especially at the linebacker position? Just what do you feel like has been going wrong there?
It's very, very simple to me. It's communication. It's communication and over communication. And when I say that, when you watch a tight end yak across the formation and go back and come back, you see 3 or 4 Alabama guys move and 3 or 4 Alabama guys move back. And, by the way, I can go to Missouri and watch that game. I can go to A&M and then Ole Miss. I can go to all those games, and I can show you clips in every single game about how, the motion across the formation confuses some of the DBs, confuses some of the linebackers, and it leads to big plays. In every game, I can point that out. So I think that's been an issue, I think, with linebackers and with nickelbacks that they're going to have to get figured out in this game. And if I'm Georgia, I'm doing a lot of that, and I'm attacking them in those areas. That's the chess match that on both sides that I think they're going to have to sort out and see which one can win. But that's what I see from the defense mainly is miscommunication and a lot of busts.
All right, we'll go to William Galloway next with James Ludman on deck. Go ahead, William.
Hey, David, I want to ask you about this Alabama offense. Obviously, very dynamic on all fronts. But if you had to pick one part, whether it was offensive line, the skill players, or Mac Jones, what would you say is the premier part of this Alabama offense?
My favorite part about that is what you just said, which is why this is such a stupid topic. And stupid not meaning bad, meaning good. You just said, is it the offensive line, is it Mac Jones, or is it the weapons? And you didn't even mention Najee Harris. Like, that's why this conversation is stupid, because there isn't a weakness. There isn't something – I can watch tape of all these offenses and I go, you know what? Offensive line isn't really good enough to hold up in protection. You watch certain quarterbacks, they're not good enough to beat you. There's plenty of skill, but they don't consistently throw with timing, throw with touch. And so there's always something missing. There's not anything missing with this offense. It's a very complete offense. So, I think Najee Harris makes it go, to be honest. I think he's the guy that when he started on campus several years ago to where he is now is night and day. Credit to him for developing and turning into what he is, because not only is he a weapon in the running game, he's a weapon in the passing game. And you see the wheel routes from him, and he's going to go up and get it like he's a wide receiver, even though he's a big, huge man and a big, powerful running back. So I think out of all those things you talk about, it's important to have a line, it's important to have skill, it's important to have Mac. I think having Najee sets the table for everything on that offense.
All right, we'll go to James Ludman with the last question coming from Jeff Spiegel. Go ahead, James.
Hey, thank you, David, for taking some time with us today. I wanted to reference a tweet you sent out yesterday where it says loser of Georgia-Alabama game is still very much in the playoff picture. To me, this matchup is the irresistible force meeting an immovable object in the offense versus the defense. So in your opinion, what is going to be the key for both Georgia and Alabama to take the win tomorrow? Like, what position area is going to have to stand out in order for either one of these teams to walk out of Tuscaloosa with a W?
Are you talking about on a specific side of the ball? Are you talking about offense for Alabama and defense for Georgia?
Correct.
Well, I mean, it's what I just said a second ago. It's the slot wide receiver position. It's Waddle versus Stevenson and Webb. That's the defining part of the offense for me. So I just if I flip to the other side of the football, weakness on weakness. I think it's Georgia's George Pickens. It's Georgia's Pierce Jackson. It's Georgia's Stetson Bennett, who y'all didn't even know his name a couple of weeks ago across the country. People didn't even know his name, and now he's the starting quarterback. And by the way, he's a really good athlete, not just a good athlete. He's a really good athlete. I think he got clocked on the GPS this past week at 20 miles an hour in a game. Like that's not pretty decent athlete. That's an elite athlete. So his ability to move, their ability to run the football, his ability to take shots, to find George Pickens, to take advantage of the offense, to take advantage of shifts and motions and making Alabama communicate, and which side of the ball, plays better. I assume both sides are going to have – I assume strength of Georgia is going to win some and strength of Alabama is going to win some on the other side of the football. Which does one or the other dominate the day now? Does Alabama's defense step up in a big way and be a big force and stymie Georgia's offense? If that's the case, Georgia's in trouble. Alabama's in trouble if Georgia can consistently move the football and Stetson Bennett's making big plays in the passing game.
All right, last question is coming from Jeff Spiegel. Go ahead, Jeff.
David, I know Kirby and Nick have only played each other twice, but both of the losses for Kirby have just been wrenching. Has Nick gotten into his head a little bit?
I mean, hey, bro, the master always has the trump card, right? Like, the teacher, always has a little something over the protege. This is the guy that groomed you. This is the guy that taught you, what you know. I think it's always going to be. And listen, just, ask Kirby questions about him and look at the body language. And like, it's always going to be there. It's always going to be, something. But I'll say this, Kirby's done an excellent job in going head to head with him in recruiting and winning a lot of battles. He's done an excellent job against Nick with first halves and being ready for a game. I think, to me, the evolution and the next step is you got to win a second half. And I think it's -30, by the way, in the last two games. And obviously one was for a national title and one was for a chance to go to the college football playoff, so obviously big games that the second half, Nick has kind of won those battles. So I think, there's always going to be something between your mentor and your teacher and versus the student.
Thanks, David. Thanks, Hannah.
You got it. All right, guys, that wraps up our session.